Hey guys, Pastor Tanner here, coming at you with another Logos video. In this video, Logos released a new feature, the Smart Bible Search. I had to jump in and take a look at it and see what I thought. You guys know that I'm a big fan of the Smart Search function. Does the Smart Bible Search also meet a high expectation that I might have for it? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you the ins and outs of the Smart Bible Search function and tell you my thoughts. Now, what is Smart Bible Search for? This is for when you are looking for verses in the Bible. Have you ever had one of those moments where you're thinking, doesn't it say somewhere in the Bible, and you can't think of the verse? You might have an idea of it. It's on the tip of your tongue, but you don't know exactly where it's at. That's what the Smart Bible Search function is for. It's to help you find different kinds of verses in the Bible for those situations. Now, I want you to know that I was introduced to this function through Phil Gaughan's article. Phil Gaughan works for Logos, and it's a fantastic article. I'll put the link to it down in the description below, so if you want a little more detail on this function, you can go ahead and read through his fantastic article. Now, I want you to know that this function is also primarily for those with a subscription. However, I do believe that they said that there is a free version as well where you'll get some uses of the function also. I haven't played with the free version, but I just wanted to let you know it's primarily directed towards the subscription users. Now, up until now, when you had to search for a Bible verse, you had to use a precise search function in Logos. And oftentimes, they were looking for you to get those words or those phrases almost exactly right. So you might be thinking about a Bible verse. I thought I remember there was a verse that talked about us being more than conquerors. So you put more than conquerors in there. And sure enough, you find it. It's Romans 8:37. You can see it got your exact search, more than conquerors. All right. But this precise search sometimes failed to deliver if you couldn't remember the phrasing exactly. So perhaps you thought of, I think there's a verse that says there's a peace that transcends our understanding. I can't get a hit here. This is where Logos introduced the fuzzy search. So if you go down here, you can see the fuzzy search would often give you the verse, even if you didn't have the exact phrasing. I can see here it's Philippians 4:7, and the peace of God which surpasses all understanding. It's not the peace that transcends, it's the peace that surpasses. That makes sense. Now, this fuzzy search does a pretty good job if you can get in the ballpark, okay? But it does have a couple of weaknesses. First, it usually only returns you a single verse rather than a section of verses. So if you're searching something that is in the ballpark, but it takes up several verses, you might miss. And then not only that, if you're thinking of a concept or an idea, maybe you remember a narrative section of the Bible, but you don't know the exact words or phrases that were used in those verses, sometimes you won't get the hits you're looking for. And so because of this, a lot of people still use something like Google in order to try and find the Bible verses they were looking for. They got the idea right, and then Google would go ahead and give them what they had in mind. Now, I don't know about you, but I hate leaving my Logos ecosystem to go do something else in another program or a browser and then trying to bring that stuff over. I want to do everything in my Logos Bible software. And you would think that Logos Bible software, given that it's directed at studying the Bible, would be much better at finding Bible verses than Google is. Well, enter Smart Bible Search. Does it live up to that expectation? Now, Phil Gaughan, in his article, he outlined 5 good use cases for the Smart Bible Search. Let me show you how to use each one of them. First of all, you can search for vaguely remembered verses. Make sure you select the Smart Search area, and then let's say that we were looking for a concept or an idea that wouldn't be easy to find using the fuzzy search. Here I might type in, where does Elijah call down fire from heaven? I know that it happens, but I'm not exactly sure where. Notice that if I use the precise search, even the fuzzy precise search, I'm getting hits from Luke, Revelation, Chronicles, yes, Kings, but not my exact hits that I would be looking for in terms of this passage. And if I delete some of the words here, it doesn't get much better. I'm still not actually finding that exact section that I'm looking for. This is a perfect opportunity to use the Smart Search. If we type the same prompt into the Smart Search, we can see it gives us 1 Kings 18. This is exactly the section of Scripture that we were looking for. Phil Gaughan also notes a couple of other prompts that might be helpful. Paul rebuked Peter for his hypocrisy. If you type that in, you should be able to find that section. Or Jesus said David broke the Sabbath. Where did Jesus say that? If you type that in, the Smart Search should give you the answer. A second opportunity to utilize the Smart Bible Search is by searching for conceptual questions and queries. If you're asking kind of doctrinal questions, which verses point to certain ideas, that is another way in which you can use this function. Now, for me, this use case is huge. I was actually utilizing the Smart Search function not the Smart Bible Search function, to try and find ideas like this. But what it would do is it would pull up lists of ideas in my other books. Now, that was helpful, but they were compiled by a human author. There might be errors, and it was helpful to reference those from time to time, but probably not an exhaustive list. But instead, if you type these sorts of questions into the Smart Bible Search, you're going to get some amazing results. One example for me is I usually speak a benediction at the end of the service over my congregation. What if I just type benedictions into the Smart Bible Search? This simple query gives me some of the major benedictions that are listed in the Bible. These are all the standard ones that are out there. And if you type this same prompt into the precise search, you do not get as good of results. You can also type simple questions like, where does the Bible talk about sports? Or which kings obeyed the Lord but didn't tear down the high places? Again, Phil brings these up, and these are fantastic questions that you could ask the Bible Smart Search to find the verses you're looking for. Use case number 3 is searching for doctrinal or thematic ideas in the text. So if you are searching for some sort of systematic theological theme and which verses support this, you don't have to run off to the systematic theology itself and try to collate all of the verses that are presented there by the author. Instead, you can just put the question here. The simple prompt, verses teaching penal substitutionary atonement, gives you some fantastic hits. You get a wide range. Isaiah 53, of course, Romans 3, 2 Corinthians 5:21, 1 Peter 2, Galatians 3. These are all some of the most standard texts for this doctrine. Again, Phil points out some other prompts along these lines. Times when there was plenty of food left over in the New Testament, or the primacy of love in the New Testament. These would be good prompts too. Now, a really cool application of this feature is searching for verses that are similar to other verses. This reminds me of utilizing those cross-reference type of systems like the New Treasury of Scripture Knowledge. Here is another way that you can grab verses that are alike. So, for example, more verses like Ephesians 3:18. You can see if you type this prompt in, you not only get the standard pericope, but you get the equivalent pericope in Colossians, as well as some other verses that are quite relevant. Another way of using this feature is to actually ask it to give you verses that are in opposition to other verses. So Phil Gons points this one out, verses that seem at odds with Romans 3:28. This is really helpful because sometimes you'll be searching for verses and you know that there are other verses that don't seem to quite work with it and you're trying to reconcile them. Here is a perfect example of that use case. Number 5, the final example that I think is so helpful, is actually searching for verses that are of practical use and help in your life or in other people's lives. So many people out there have good memory verses or verses that they like to run to when they're struggling with some sort of sin or difficulty in their life. And this is with good reason. The Bible is meant to be used in this way. This is part of why God gave it to us. Oftentimes, I have had members of my congregation ask for memory verses on particular topics and themes, and I've usually run to resources like the Biblical Counseling Keys for this. While those resources are still fantastic, the ability to utilize this search tool in order to generate verses as well is awesome. So if I type here in the prompt, verses to help with alcoholism, look at the great hits that I get. We get some great New Testament verses talking about this sin and how we must overcome it by the power of the Spirit. We also get some New Testament verses that give us some encouragement that we don't have a temptation here that we cannot overcome. And we get some Old Testament verses too that point out the fact that our alcoholism is really going to lead us astray. Phil Gons points out a couple of other references. Am I really a Christian? How can I know for sure? Or I'm feeling discouraged and lonely. Help me renew my mind with the truth. It is so cool to me that you can actually utilize this new Smart Bible Search function in order to generate helpful Bible verses for you in your everyday walk and life. One final warning is pointed out in the article, and that is if you're trying to utilize this function in order to generate comprehensive and academic lists, it might not quite do exactly what you're looking for. For example, the prompt to give me all of the verses that have perfect passive participles in Galatians is not going to give you every single verse exhaustively, and it might give you a few false positives. So while that's not a great application of this tool, it is helpful in so many other ways. So what are my final thoughts on the new Smart Bible Search? I think this is an awesome addition. Now I don't feel like I need to leave the Logos ecosystem in order to search for specific verses or try to do some workaround in order to try and find what I'm looking for. And frankly, this function is much more accessible to a vast majority of Logos users. You know I love the Smart Search because it leverages a very large Logos library. But this simple tool is available to people who just have a Bible version, a subscription, and the Smart Bible Search function function is going to give them a lot of bang for their buck in terms of their personal walk and their life. So please keep it up, Logos. These are exactly the kinds of tools that we were looking for when we saw the promise of a subscription. If these keep rolling out regularly, I think many people are going to be happy with their investment. What are your thoughts and use cases for the Smart Bible Search? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching the Pastor Tanner YouTube channel. If you found this video helpful, please consider clicking my link down in the description below. It gets me a small commission whenever you make a purchase through Logos Bible software. Appreciate your love and support so much. We'll catch you again real soon. Take care. God bless. Bye.